It's cool. Hey, Eric. So I mean, Sean's my homie, you know, nothing but love. But you and I have followed each other for like a bazillion years now, I think.
Really?
I tried that. Yeah, no. He's like, really? I've never seen you before. No, I'm trying to think if we have actually met in person. Because, I mean, I know we've been at, because I go to a lot of things. You know what I mean?
I was going to say that we probably run into each other at a show.
Like Desert Gray or, you know, one of the Zia things or something. We've probably met each other because you look super familiar. But I can't tell that it's if you look familiar or if we've actually just followed each other.
I totally feel you on that because I feel the same way right now. I'm looking at your face and I'm like, I've definitely seen that face before.
Yeah,
you guys have definitely been at the same shows.
Yeah, my favorite thing in the world is music. Yeah. So.
Well, I'm excited to actually like get a chance to chat with you, man.
Thank you. Me too. You know, I don't do the interview thing very often. So this is I'll be like, you know, but for you, Sean, I will do the interview thing. I love that. Hey, I saw your post, Sean, so I was doing some light reading.
All right. Nice.
That was funny, that the interview with the vampire. I tell you what, I lived like a vampire for years doing like the night shift, you know, so you don't go out in the sun, you know, so that's kind of good though. It's good for your skin. I tell everybody, like all my former students, like everybody I know, I'm like, listen kids, sunscreen.
Yeah, that's true.
You don't want to, you know, look like you're 80 when you're like, you know, 22.
Or 30 or whatever, yeah, for
right,
sure.
Exactly.
Get like the leather skin for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I did the night shift thing while I was working at a factory up north in Idaho for a couple months, and I went. It was like in the winter time, so I think I went like 2 months without seeing the sun at all.
Yeah,
yeah,
that's crazy. Yeah, no, it's a whole different world. Yeah,
it is. I definitely owned the streets at night though. I was like the only person on the road. It was pretty cool.
Okay,
that was the first time I'd like. No, I was gonna say that was the first time I'd lived somewhere where it snowed too, and I never dealt with like icy roads or anything. So I just like for giggles one night when I was the only car on the road, I was like intentionally spinning out on like a 4-lane road, you know. It was.
Well, I'm glad you're okay.
Oh yeah, I'm doing great.
No, I understand that though. For me, like the pandemic has been really hard because I still kind of have a routine of like I like to go to, you know, 24-hour anything and do my grocery shopping then like at night when it's kind of real calm and the lighting is different and the music is different and there's not everybody you're bumping into and it's just like, you know, yeah. So that's hard when a lot of 24-hour places aren't open now and it's like, yeah, so I now do my grocery shopping at Saturday afternoon with everybody's grandmother and little league team and everything else. So it's a different world, in the daytime. Because I live in music, like musicians songwriter world, you know, where you're up and you're creative at night. So while I'm holding down my 40-hour job during the day, I call it the Batman Bruce Wayne thing. You know, it's like my Bruce Wayne job is the insurance. Well, now it was teaching, but now it's the insurance. So,
nice.
But the Batman job is that's when it's time to, you know, go out and sing or go out and be at
do the thing you love.
Something or even if it's just sitting at home writing, you know.
Dude, for real, that's awesome. Well, I'm excited to chat with you about this.
Thank you.
So I got the track that we listened to that we're going to be talking about tonight. I got through the Google Drive. Has this one been released yet?
No.
Oh heck yeah! So this is like an exclusive.
Yeah, it will be, and I'm releasing this because of this actually.
Yeah. Okay.
It's another one of those nights I decided to stay and fight. Gonna do what I can. And I developed my own plan. If I could read your mind, then I know what to do. it should be no surprise. I want to anyway. Shed light on shadow and let me reveal. I just wanna be in your life. I just wanna be in your life. And now this cannot wait. Do you know you saved my life? And everything I wish for change. You shed light on shadow. If you could see my face, then you know what I feel. The things I try to hide, but they cannot conceal. No, I just wanna be in your life. I just wanna be in your life. And now this cannot wait. Do you know you saved my life? And everything I wish for change. You shed light on shadow. I was thrown into water, thought that I might drown. I was tied up to an anchor and my hands were bound. I was thrown into the water and was told to sink or swim. I had darkness all around me and I couldn't get out. And the only thing alone and faith me was that you wouldn't hate me if I could fight on through. And then I can get through to you. And no, this cannot wait. Do you know you saved my life? And everything I wish for change. You shed light on shadow. Do you hear it? No, and I'll say, do you know you saved my life? And everything I wish for change. You shed light on shadow. I will never be the same. Never be the same.
it was I think a couple people downloaded this maybe like a couple years ago, because I was doing a thing where a friend of mine was doing like a suicide prevention thing, like
Nice.
you know, it was like an auction, like contribute to something and you'll get this or whatever. So I gave that track to a couple of people that, you know, put in money for it, you know, for that, because I think that's beautiful. I'm never gonna say no to a like a charity or anything like that. No, the guys
Sure.
the guys in my band are so great. They're always like we're not gonna get paid for this, are we? This is a charity thing, isn't it, Aaron?
That's just like to be
No,
expected
they,
when you.
jokingly, because they're all really wonderful, you know, the guys
Yeah,
that do
for
come.
sure.
But no, they're like, this is gonna be for like children's cancer or like the arts and something. So they're like, yeah, no, they're good sports about it. No, but this song, the song that I was jamming to just as we were starting, I actually wrote and finished yesterday.
Nice.
Because I knew I was gonna do this with you guys, and I've wanted to release this song that we're gonna talk about for a really long time, and it's never been right. And I'd always kind of meant to go in and finish it, but then I didn't, you know, and so I went in yesterday to go and finish this song, and I was like, you know, there's part of this song that just, it belongs sort of slightly unfinished, you know, and I still think it's beautiful, you know, the way it is. It's one of those, what I call the dulcimer songs. I don't know how much you know about me, but Sean does. Hi, Sean. No, but I have a dulcimer. I have it here. I can show it to you. And for the first CD, which was now like 6 years ago or something insane,
Nice.
I like to sit and just kind of like play that out and play chords to it, you know. So there's about 4 or 5 songs. Sean Runaway Train was one of the dulcimer songs. I know you love that one. But so this one I kind of had sat and played out, and I had always meant to go in and finish it, but it never got there. But yesterday I was sitting there thinking, no, I like the way it is, and it should be unfinished. Yeah. Can I tell you the dulcimer story while I show you?
Dude, tell us the whole thing. Like, we want to hear anything you want to talk about on this.
So quickly, okay. I don't want to I don't want to say crash your interview because it's technically my interview, right? So,
Ooh, hang on just a second. Sean, I think your mic might be off or something. I can't hear you. I can see you speaking.
yeah, I thought he was doing a bit.
I thought he was for a second too.
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Now we can.
Yes.
Perfect.
There you go. Let's try it again. Hi, Sean.
That explains why I've been talking the whole time and nobody's heard. I was just gonna
see the interview with the vampire book for you.
Yes, I did. That's awesome. So anyway,
So I'm gonna
I was just
here's my dulcimer.
get it.
Ooh,
I'll go ahead. What were you gonna say?
beautiful.
I was just gonna say, be careful. If the meeting cuts out, it's just because I'm cheap and time ran out. We just have to hop back in.
That's okay.
Yeah,
Hey,
so ultimately what he means by that is we don't have a time limit. You can talk about whatever you want to. We just want to hear about you and your thoughts and your process and everything. Yes, but we might have to splice some things together. So
absolutely.
go ahead.
Okay.
Tell
I'm
your
gonna
dulcimer
set my,
story.
my phone on my alarm. Or my phone on my alarm. Scratch that, reverse it, like Willy Wonka would say. Yeah, I was gonna set my alarm on my phone so that I didn't talk for too long. You know what I mean?
No, you're good.
I'm not
No
asking a
worries.
lot from a lot of people.
Nah,
you
don't
know.
worry.
No, so
we're
this
here for
dulcimer, strange
That's
instrument.
cool.
And
Yeah.
I thought so, and I first encountered this. So I was in Australia, in a place called Perth, which is like on the west end of Australia. It's like as far away from the United States as I could get without being in the middle of the ocean.
Nice.
You know? And I've been a lot of places, but Perth has always gone partially home. But no, so here I am in like West Australia, and I'm walking around. They do have the street meetings, and there's people doing magic tricks and people doing like capoeira, which I joined that group later on too. We got some mixed martial arts in.
That's cool.
But everybody just it's kind of like First Friday that we do here in Phoenix, you know? And there was this guy, and he was this street performer. He was this really strange man, very strange. And he set up, and he had like a little setup, and he had he's strumming this thing and I was like, sir, what, exotic Australian instrument is this? Not knowing, and he looks at me, and he goes, nah, mate. I'm like, what? And he's like, oh, I got this in a state of misery. And I was like, a state of misery? Oh my. I was like, well, a state of misery, we've all been there, and I'm proud of you for channeling that through your songs. And he's looking at me like, and I'm looking at him, and he's looking at me, and he's like, mate, the state, Missouri. And I'm like, you mean Missouri? Like in the U.S.? Like this is, because I thought it was like, at that point, me, I'd seen like didgeridoos and, other little random things that I hadn't, I'd never seen that before, And so I thought, like I said, what exotic Australian instrument is this? And he's like, nah, mate, I got that in the state of Missouri. And I was like, Missouri, right, okay. And so not too long after that, I'd gotten home, and my family did it. This sounds so American, but it is. My family did a family trip to Branson, Missouri. It was very like, it's as wholesome as you think it would be, it is, you know what I mean? So
nice.
There's a place there called Celebration City or Silver Dollar City. It was one of the amusement parks, and they had set up, and sure enough, at the Appalachian Dulcimer, stand, where a guy who had made them for years, like, was making them, and I was like, this is coming home with me.
Dude, that's awesome. I love that you were hi Kitty. I love that you were drawn to like the one American instrument in the group too.
Like, wow.
Yeah. Well, like I said, it was just because it looked really unique and different to me, and that is what I'm drawn to.
Well, I bet you, especially in that environment, it was just like, it stood out like a sore thumb, I bet.
Yeah, no, it did. I'm not ever usually drawn to things that are typical, you know, because I kind of live in Wonderland. I don't live in what I tell people the real world. It comes from I was blind for years. Sean knows this. Eric doesn't know this because we've never met, but we've actually had 2 corneal transplants.
Wow.
This was an 18-year-old girl, and this was a 12-year-old boy.
Wow.
And, you know, being like an organ transplant recipient, there's nothing like that, you know, and it's not very, you know, you're part of a little club, you know, that's really something, you know. I always try to tell myself that if I'm having a bad day or whatever, which is sometimes, you know what I mean? Like you just really, really try to think, especially now, to try and live a good day for them because they give me a real special gift, you know?
Dude, yeah. Like you're literally seeing the world through their eyes. That's crazy.
Right. Yeah, no, I've never, Stevie Nicks, my favorite person in the whole world, which is where the tambourine comes from. No self-respecting Stevie Nicks fan knows not how to, you know, doesn't know how to work a tambourine.
Sure.
But no, now I want cranberry juice. I was gonna get some cranberry juice. I'm loving that. That's like everywhere now, you know. Fleetwood Mac Dreams, because of that.
Yeah.
That dude, that is, because for years and years and years, people would tell me like, because I've always loved Fleetwood Mac, and I've met them before. I've actually met Stevie. I've got my picture here.
Oh, nice. You came prepared for this one, man.
Oh, I keep it on the shelf.
Awesome.
That is fantastic.
Her mom used to recognize me because she lived here. She's lived on Cadillac Mountain. But no.
What? I didn't know that.
Yeah, she did
went
for
to-
years. Did benefit concerts for the Arizona Heart Institute. So
Did she go to Scottsdale High School or something like that?
I think so. At one point in time, she moved around a lot growing up, but yeah,
Crazy.
you know, moved around a lot like I am for this story. No, but Stevie Nicks says my life was never meant to be normal, so don't even try to make it that way. You know? And I think that too. Like I have just another quick background personal fact, you know, has nothing to do with music. My little sister, who's still one of my best friends in the whole world, has cerebral palsy. And she was the girl that was like, you know, when you go to the grocery store or the gas station, they have like donate to this, you know, UCP or Easter Seals or whatever it is, and then as the picture of the child who's like smiling and waving.
Yeah.
That was my sister for like my whole childhood, you know. I grew up, we went to these like telethons with all these famous people and like events on the whatever, and like they filmed us walking to school, you know, when my mom had called 3 on Your Side and got the curbs made for cutaways so she could use her walker and walk to school for the first time. It's like, you know, like you're in 6th grade, you're trying to be as normal as possible, and here I am with the news crew showing up,
Dang,
you know, filming us walking to school. So I'm like, you know, I just kind of got used to the unusual, you know, but yeah, you know.
Yeah, that's an interesting starting point for life, man. That's wild.
It is. I can be extroverted. I'm really like an introvert trapped in an extrovert's body, because like she's like, we would go places and still we go places, you know, and people will stare and, you know, say things because she's in a wheelchair, like, oh, I hope she's smart, or really awful things, you know. It's like, it's 2020.
Damn.
Can we be nice to people with disabilities, please? And thank you. You know, and she will smile and she will be sweet and I will not be. You know, like, I'll be like, she can hear you, you know. I thought the same thing about you when we first walked in. I hope she's smart. You know, so I kind of learned to be the extrovert, you know what I mean, that way.
Yeah. Man, that's wild, man. Well, that's like, I feel like that's just all of that rolled into one's gonna give you a unique perspective on life in the first place, let alone like that you start making a commentary through music and stuff. I'm excited to dig into this one with you, man.
Mm-hmm.
Let's start with that then, Eric.
Yeah, ask me. I will shut up and let you ask me what you want to ask me.
No, you're good.
This has been a great intro because, like you said, this is the first time that we're having a chance to have a conversation. So I love knowing more about the people we're talking to because it helps me ask better questions. So
I love conversational podcasts. So
yeah.
Well, I know that, you know, and not to sort of call anybody out or anything like that, because I would never do that. And I don't mean this with you, but there are a lot of people like in our music scene too that like I know they have seen me, you know, like around, or they've seen my name, or they've seen other people talk about me, but they don't necessarily know anything about me, really, you know.
Yeah.
We may have never actually talked, you know. So yeah, just a couple fun facts.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you very much for sharing that. Sean, you want to take over on some questions real quick?
Yeah, so let's start. So what is the general theme, the idea of this song?
This song is Shed Line and Shadow is like it's about growth and personal growth and finding out things about yourself, you know, that maybe you didn't know before, or really sort of being in like a really dark place and then having, you know, suddenly being bathed in light and having that be everything that light is, you know, just warm and comforting and apparent and enlightening, you know, which even has the word in it. So that's what this is about.
Okay, so it's like an epiphany then, like coming to light with some sort of realization, maybe.
Kinda, you know, I think so. I think I'll just launch into it, you know.
Yeah, go for it.
Go for it, yeah.
So it's another one of those nights. I decided to stay and fight. I went in and added that later because that's what I was thinking. That's what I was feeling. About like 6 years ago or so, I had a sort of half-assed suicide attempt. And I don't talk about that very often. You know, it's not anything I want my mom to see, you know, which she'll probably see this later, because I don't want to hurt her, make her feel bad. But that's the problem with things like that, is it's so insidious that the sadness will get to you so much that it doesn't matter how many people love you or how many, you know, whatever. It's like you have to feel that within yourself, and otherwise it might not pull you out of that space, you know?
Yeah.
I am Sean.
So that's kind of what you mean? I decided, kind of thing.
Yeah, no, it's another one of those nights where like, oh my God, here's the sadness coming in again, you know? And it's always, especially once you've hit like a real low like that, it's always a conscious decision to be like, no, I'm not. Actually, I wear this ring. I wear a lot. I can see if you can kind of see it.
Yeah.
That's one of my promises to myself, to never even consider that thought again. And I wear that all the time. But it's a conscious decision that it's another one of those nights. Like I decided to stay and fight. You know, gonna do what I can, and I develop my own plan. Like, here's how I feel, and I'm acknowledging that. And I'm also acknowledging that I'm gonna stay, and I'm gonna fight this out, and I'm just gonna do whatever it takes, whatever I can. You know, I'm gonna formulate a plan, because like I'm a person of action. Like I like to, if things start feeling out of control or I start to feel sad about things, I'm like, okay, well, what are you gonna do about it? You know?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's beautiful that you're putting that into song, especially having, like, I mean, you just said that it's a hard thing for you to talk about. But I mean, putting it into lyrics and that kind of thing is definitely a form of getting that particular pain out. One of the problems because I'm diagnosed with depression and anxiety and all that stuff, I've definitely run down some of those hills myself. I haven't personally gone through any suicide attempts, but definitely ideation and that kind of stuff. So I'm familiar with that territory. And from personal experience, both going through counseling and just kind of like developing my own methodologies of crawling out of those particular holes, is I've learned that one of the biggest red flags is that isolationism, where it just kind of like convinces you that nobody cares, or that if they did care, they couldn't do anything to change it. And so bringing your problem to them would just add additional burden to, like you said, people that love you. Or that you just don't want to hurt with your actions. Like you're trying to basically, for me, what it is I'm just trying to stop existing. Like it's not necessarily about death or anything like that. It's just like, I just don't want to be here.
No, that's true. That's exactly, because you get to the point where you want it all to stop. You know? Because it's too much and it's overwhelming. And no, that's what you said is totally true. Like it makes you feel like you're alone. Like, you know, I don't know if you ever watched any of the Harry Potter movies or read the books, but you know where the Luna, the real like quirky one, is talking to Harry, you know, and saying, if I was the Dark Lord, I would make you want to feel like you were alone. And you know what I mean? Because the truth is he's got all those people around him who do, you know, maybe doesn't have his parents, but yeah, he's got his own family, you know. And that's true. None of us are really well and as truly alone as sometimes, you know, our own consciousness or a bad situation or a breakup or whatever it is can make you feel.
Yeah, that's so true. And a huge part of the process is making that decision to fight. And sometimes that fight looks like putting it in a song or having a conversation with someone that is uncomfortable or whatever, you know, just like taking that step to be vulnerable, which is very difficult in the first place, and to allow yourself to be caught by the people around you. Because I mean, from life experience, for a lot of us, you know, there's times where we have put ourselves in positions to be caught like that, and people have fucked up, you know, because they're not perfect either. But ultimately, like, that doesn't change that from being one of the best methodologies for taking care of yourself in those situations. You know, like, the failures of the people in your past doesn't necessarily transmute to the failures of the people around you. But being human beings, we learn through repetition and process, and we learn to not trust people sometimes. But it, like, you having outlets like putting it in music and stuff is a really powerful and awesome tool to be able to utilize even in times when you don't have the capability to have that conversation with someone. Because I know how that goes too. Like, it can be, because it can, like, you feel like an additional burden to that person, because you, like, if you're drowning in your life and you're around the people around you and you know how much they're struggling, the idea of being like, hey, by the way, also I've been thinking about killing myself, like, that just, like, you're like, oh my gosh, you know, like, I don't want to overwhelm you even more, you know?
Yeah. I know you're in pain, but here's mine.
Yeah, exactly.
No, and that's especially for me, for this, like, that's exactly what it was. It's like, I had, like, you know, like, former students or, you know, other whoever it was that was, like, leaning on me, you know what I mean? And they expect me to be like, I'm the strong friend.
Right.
You know what I mean? I'm the one that, you know, the whole runaway train thing, Sean, right? That I will be there when you need me. Like, I will, you know, but
I'm still making time for you, though.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's the rest of Eric. That's the rest of that line from that song. But yeah, no, it's true. You do. And it's like, it's hard to do that, you know, and that is what it was. You know, it was just kind of like, I didn't know who to go to, because I didn't want to, you don't want to bother them with it. Because you hit the nail on the head too, like earlier, Eric, when you'd said something about, like, you know, you don't know what to say to people or whatever. And that's what the next line of this is about too.
Yeah.
It's that if I could read your mind, then I'd know what to say, you know, and it should be no surprise. I'd want to anyway. Shed light on shadow and let be revealed. I wanted to sing that like, and it should be no surprise. I'd want to anyway. That whole thing.
Dude, I love that part.
It's because, like, I don't, again, like, I'm like I said, I'm an introvert trapped in an extrovert's body. Like, I don't know what to say to people. You know what I mean? You go to these things and it's like, it's so hard. You just got to, like, leave the house and get all, like, you know, dressed up, and then you look good. You got your fresh cut or whatever it is. And you go out to, you know, these, like, whatever it could be, your church activity, or it could be a bar, or it could be a, who knows what, you know, and it's like
a rap show.
Yeah. But you don't know, you don't know what to say to people. It's like, like, I always think, like, especially some people I care about, and especially having the conversation that this song is about, I didn't know how to say this to this person, because it had to be handled a specific way. But just in general, I don't know what to say to people. So, like, if you could be a mind reader, like, if I could read your mind, then I'd know what to say, you know, and it shouldn't be any surprise to you that I would want to do that anyway. So,
dude, I really liked that lyric specifically. Actually, I made a note about that one just because, like, because I totally connect with and vibe with the mentality behind those lyrics. And I'm really glad you explained them in that way, because I wasn't entirely sure what the nature of this song was about. But, like, when I read those lyrics and I heard them on the song, they stuck out to me specifically, because I totally relate to that, being an introvert myself, where it's like, I'm not trying to be in contention with you if I say something that offends you, or, like, I fuck up this conversation somehow, or whatever, you know, like, I really, really want to have connection with you. I'm just bad at making connections sometimes. And I really liked that. Yeah, that was really good.
No, that's exactly it. It's like, I really want to connect with you. I don't know how to, I'm bad at making connections, maybe. No, that's,
but, and that's why I do what I do in my job.
No,
I'm the connector.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to start this podcast.
And you, Sean, are very good at that. Sean is a really good example of somebody who does that, you know. And my whole life I wanted to have friends, you know what I mean? Because I don't think I really had an actual friend until I was like 30.
Yeah.
Because, like, for various, like, no one wants to be friends with the blind kid, you know, like, because he can't go skateboard or play sports, or you can't go to the movies, or I couldn't do any of that, you know.
Wow.
So it's like, and then kids would come over, you know, like when, or whatever, and I would ask them if they wanted to come over and hang out, you know, even before when I could see, and they'd be like, I would come over, Aaron, but your sister just makes me uncomfortable. I don't know how to act with people who are, you know,
Dude.
And I would be like, well, then you can get the hell out of my life because it's my sister and she's actually really awesome. So
Yeah.
you should get, you know what I mean? So it'd be like, no, I was telling someone the other day on Facebook, I did a shout out. I said, you know what, you are a really good example. Hi, Lauren, if you happen to see this, of a really good friend, because when I worked at both an elementary school and an old folks home, and I've seen how people interact with each other. And I think that in between, like there's two separate stories and they happened relatively within each other. Cause like all good educators, I needed a summer job. So, anyway, so like during the elementary school, you would see the kids and these little kids in freaking kindergarten would be like, one would be playing with like a truck and the other one would walk up and be like, hey, you like trucks? I like trucks. Yeah, high five. And then be like, do you want to play? Yeah, let's be friends. Boom. That's as hard as it was,
Done.
And the same thing, like I was in the retirement home, and I will never forget this because, like I said, they were a couple weeks apart. There was a new older gentleman at the retirement home, and one of the other older guys was riding his bicycle, and he came out and he was like, hey, that's a pretty good bike, and then he was like, well, I just got this, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, I got myself a bike. Do you want to go ride some bikes sometimes? And he's like, yeah. And and like a week later, I see him like riding their bikes, and I thought, that's what it is. And people lose that in between like the ages of like, 22 or 18 or whenever you start to really think you're cool, or whatever, or get like insecure until like the age of like 65, people lose that whole like, hey, I like you. I like your music. I like, whatever it is, and let's connect over that. Maybe we could have a friendship, I still operate like that because again, I didn't know how to do that. So all I was left with was my like Sesame Street lessons when I was a little kid, like how to be a good friend, like be the friend you're supposed to want to have, You know
what the best advice I ever got on that is if you can't find something that you can approach somebody and comfortably compliment them on something they've chosen. So clothing, they've colored their hair, piercings, whatever it is that they've chosen for themselves because it's complimenting their taste instead of something they can't control.
Oh.
Yeah. I actually, I don't want to stray too far because I really like the stuff you're talking about, Aaron, but I picked up, I worked at Starbucks for about a year, and I picked up a really similar way of making like real short-term like connections as deep as possible in as quick a time as possible when I was working at the drive-thru window. And one of the ways I did it was through that I specifically would look for items of like on a person or in their immediate environment. Like if I was like looking into their car or something like that, I would look out and compliment something specifically that looked like it took intention and thought. So like if like Sean said, if their hair was dyed like an obvious color, or if they had like really cool earrings, I tried to like, I did tattoos for a little bit, but then I realized that just got kind of sensitive for some people.
That's my brother.
Yeah, or they're just like, I don't know, it's a tattoo or whatever, like you just like, they just don't want to talk too much about it. But so that one was like hit or miss. But yeah, I totally saw the same kind of stuff. But I want to go back to some of the stuff you were talking about, being a kid and kind of growing up in that environment. I think that's and you just like, as an adult myself, like coming into this phase of life now, like I just turned 30 and looking back on.
Ooh, happy birthday.
Thank you. I mean, well, it was in March, but like just turned.
Happy unbirthday.
Time is like a mess right now, but whatever. But like looking back on childhood friendships and different ways that I developed and grew as a kid, like we're specifically talking about like relationships and connection and that kind of stuff, was like you kind of recognize that certain friendships died and phased out as you got older, and the things that you cling to and formulate a new friendship in adulthood are very different. Like me and my wife were just talking about this last night, actually, about like how like you as a kid could have those types of friendships where it's like, oh, you live 2 houses down from me, bet, now we're friends, like that's all it really was. But then like for example, like you have like friends that you grow up with, and then as you get older you realize they're terrible friends, like they don't actually support you, they don't love you, but you were friends for so long out of whatever that childhood bond was, whether it was liking trucks or being neighbors. And then like as you get older, you find what I have found is I look back on those childhood friendships, and I used to have like an unconscious metric for how long it took for someone to become a best friend. And it used to be, it was like a 2-year process. Like if someone could maintain like a consistent friendship with me for at least 2 years, we could move into like that best friend category. We'd see each other every day kind of thing, you know, like that kind of thing. But as an adult, I found that that metric is entirely different. Like you can transition into like a best friendship period over like a period of like a month even. Like it's been
one night in a backyard at a venue or something.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like, it really changes. And I think part of that is because the standard we use in order to determine a friend is different from what it was when we were a kid. And I think it's because as a kid, and even thinking forward to what you were noticing kind of in the retirement home, is those are people who don't have full control over their environment and their time. And so they're forced to formulate relationships where they are. And I wonder if that plays, what's that?
They trauma bond.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I guess that kind of makes sense. But I was just wondering, like, I wonder if that's because, like, kind of in the same way when you limit yourself as a musician, how it forces you to produce something that you might love even more. When you, like, put certain handicaps on yourself, like, okay, I can only perform in this key for this song, or I have to do it to this BPM, or different things like that. How that can force you to get more creative and produce things that are even better. I wonder if it's the same, like, in forming human friendships, where, like, if we're locked in and we're like, okay, we have to make a friend today, like, I wonder if that forces us to expand more and be more accepting of those types of friendships.
Due to the free nature of Zoom programming, we will be right back. In the meantime, please check us out on Facebook at facebook.com/thesecrethideoutshow, or on Twitter, Instagram, or Spotify under The Secret Hideout Show Presents Did You Hear That? Thank you, and have a great day.
All right, we are back. So before we left for our commercial break for our many, many sponsors, we were talking to Aaron Allen about his song Shed Light on Shadow, and we had gotten into the first couple of lines or so. We left off right around if I could read your mind, then I'd know what to say, and it should be no surprise, I'd want to anyway. Shed light on shadow and let be revealed. So, Aaron, go for it.
That part is really about, like, I don't remember if I said this in the last part, but I feel like just an introvert trapped in an extrovert's body. Where, like, I just don't always know what to say to people, but if you ask literally anyone I'll know, they'll be like, oh yeah, he's, you know, I do not know what to say to people all the time. You know? It might seem like I do, but I don't. And so it's like, oh my gosh, if I could have a superpower, that would be one of them. Not reading people's minds per se, because I don't want to know. Keep that to yourself. But I would kind of want to know, like, the best way to kind of maybe open up a conversation or kind of get to that jumping off point, you know? Because a lot of times, you don't know what to say to people, you know, but, like, if I could read your mind, then I'd know what to say, you know? And it should be no surprise I'd want to anyway. And especially when that part of that song was about somebody else, that it was about a really good friend, or I thought they were a really good friend at the time.
Yeah.
You know, wanting to know, hey, what's bothering you? I can tell something's bothering you, you know, and let me know. Shed light on shadow. Let it be revealed. Like, what's going on? You're going to have to tell me.
Yeah, let's talk about it.
Not a mind reader. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Dude, I totally relate. Especially what you said about being an introvert trapped in an extrovert's body. I think, like, I think I kind of relate to the inverse. I feel more like an extrovert trapped in an introvert's body, in that, like, I have all this desire to reach out and try, and for the same reasons that you just listed, I'm not great at it sometimes. I'm really good at interpersonal, like, one-on-one kind of stuff like this. But as far as, like, forging new relationships just out of the blue, like with someone in line at Taco Bell or something like that, you know, like, yeah, that's hard. Like, that's really difficult, and I totally relate. So, yeah.
No, that's what I want. Just quickly, the story that, I don't remember if I told you this story or not. I'm sure I did, Sean. But working at both the elementary school and the old folks home or retirement home community, where people, like, I noticed, like, two exact same interactions. There are these two kindergartners, and then there's these two elder gentlemen that were in their maybe like 80s, you know, and kindergartner A is playing with the truck, you know, out on the playground, and kindergartner B goes up and, hey, I like trucks. Do you like trucks? And he goes, yeah, let's be friends. Boom. Those kids are still friends today. It's been years. Never mind how many years, but it's been years. And that's kind of all it really took, you know. And then similar to that, I was at the retirement community, and I had seen that there was a new person arrive, and he was unloading his bike, like his mountain bike, because he was real active still. And one of the other residents came up and he said, "Hey, you got a bike? I like to ride a bicycle." And he's like, "Hey, we should ride bicycles sometimes." Yeah, I like bikes. You like bikes. Cool. You know what I mean? And those two, and then, cut to me minding my own business one day, and I see across the window the two of them,
Bike and bike.
80s together, which is great. And I think that people go through such a long detour, in between the sort of middle of their lives, where your 20s, your 30s, your 40s, people are still so really kind of wanting to connect with people, but you miss that portion that, of yourself that says it's okay to do that. And I don't need permission to try and make a friend or to actually tell you, "Hey, you seem cool. Let's spend some time together." You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
you guys could all enhance each other's lives. You never know.
Well, and oftentimes you find that it's really well received because people like to connect too. They psychologists talk about how like the opposite of addiction isn't sobriety. It's connection.
Connection. Yeah.
Our two biggest punishments in our society nowadays are either solitary confinement or death. So if you take away the social aspect of life, nobody wants to live.
True. We're social beings to our core. Yeah, definitely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah.
So that's what that was about. Yeah.
And
that's what this whole song is about, actually, is that.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you can see that kind of playing out in the rest of your lyrics too, with that next line. I just want to be in your life. I just want to be in your light. And I know this cannot wait to do. Do you know you saved my life? I don't know if we've already touched on this just because of the technical difficulties and everything, but if you want to dive into that a little bit more, just because I can see there's a lot of meat to those words, so a lot of purpose. That was something where, I didn't really have any real friends until I was like 30. Yeah. I had maybe one. Hi Lauren, if you watch this, you're amazing. Still love you. Hi Lauren.
My sister was one of my best friends because she, like I said, like she was disabled,
right?
And I, blind. And we make the joke. It's like we'd show up at something and me with the patches on my eyes or whatever, and her in her wheelchair, and people were like, "What's this?" And or when I was like a little kid and they would come over to our house and they, whatever it was, and they'd be like, "Well, I don't want to play. I don't know how to play with her." I'm like, "Well, I don't want to play with her. She's in a wheelchair." I'm like, "Well, you can GTFO," you know what I mean? Because it's my sister and she's awesome, So
yeah.
No, but and it was a really long time. Sean, you know this. I say this to you and to Rio and to Sam and to a couple other people. I'm like, I waited a really long time for all you guys, to actually feel like I had friends, who liked music like I did, and I thought I was the only person, honestly, who grew up wanting to write songs and sing. And it turns out I'm not,
Yeah.
I was really isolated that way growing up, and it was really hard. So when I met this person, and this is someone who had eventually played on this song, we kind of started to write that together, and then we had a really bad falling out. That wasn't either of our faults. Maybe it was a little bit my fault, and maybe it was a little bit their fault, but it was mostly a bunch of other people. You know what I mean? Other people can get in the way of friendships or relationships or whatever it is. It's like between things
contribute to miscommunication.
Yeah. So we kind of started this song, and then we had a falling out, and then after a little while, I just kept being consistent with, I'm like, whatever happened, I'm still going to be me, and I'm still going to talk to you, and I'm still going to be friendly, and I am still going to hold the door if I see you coming in the building, or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Be a decent human being because I still really care about you. And so I had, during a moment when it was kind of an okay moment, after the big fight, I had said, I finished that song. And I don't want anybody else in the whole world to play on it but you, And so if you can make some time, this has nothing to do with, because we worked together too, I said, this has nothing to do with our falling out. This has nothing to do with other people. This has nothing to do with work. I said, this has everything to do with the music. And I know you're good at what you do, and I'm good at what I do. And together we're good at what we do,
Yeah.
So I said, come on in. And I had written this song sort of about that because we hadn't been talking and they hadn't been speaking to me. And like you said, no connection is that feel a solitary confinement.
Feels like death, yeah.
It really does. And so I hadn't gotten to say any of these things that I wanted to say. And this was really kind of one of my first friends that I thought, you know, because they had a disabled sibling, you know what I mean? They always felt like an outsider, not because of that, but because of other things. You know, they always felt like they were the only person in the world who wanted to do music. They didn't have any other connections that way either. And, you know, we just had a lot of really good stuff in common. You guys know this too. It's like finding friends that are just like good friends is really hard. It's worth it, but hard. But finding people that you connect with musically is also really hard. So if you find one in the same, you know what I mean, that does all that, that's just gold, you know. And so came in, and like I said, I don't always know what to say to people, but you know, gosh darn it, I can sing it to you, you know.
Yeah.
And I have like little video clips of this that'll never see the light of day, but I've like, and pictures and stuff like that somebody else was taking, you know, from the studio, you know, watching the two of us just literally sit and lay on the floor. And this whole song is me I'm kind of playing the bongo drums, you know, kind of like talk singing this whole song, and they're playing the guitar along to what I'm singing. And we really did it like in maybe 3 takes. And I have the original demo of it, and I have this one of it. And I'm just looking at this person telling them what I wanted to say. And that's just, I just want to be in your life. I just want to be in your light. That whole thing, you know, and that where I say, you know, this cannot wait. Do you know you saved my life when everything I'd wished for came? You shed light on shadow, I will never be the same. Was me saying what I wanted to say to them is that I just want you in my life. It feels like light when I haven't had that before, you know, and I just, you know, everything I wished for was just that, you know, and it was something I had wished for, you know. When I was a little kid, like blowing candles out on my birthday cake, I'm like, can I please just have some friends,
dude,
you know, that get me, you know?
Yeah,
and
just not to let you be so alone. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, that's really beautiful, really intimate too. Like I've never really sat down and created a song in that way, but that's just really like one of my, what I look for heavily in the music that I consume regularly is that type of, that type of authenticity, that type of real connection. Cause it may not be like, you know, the most like 8 layers of lyricism or whatever to it, you know, but like it's just so like from heart. Like there was a couple other lines, I don't remember off the top of my head, try to find them real quick, but I was I just want to be in your life. Like I love the simplicity of that statement, because I totally relate to that. Like I've been in situations as well where it's just like, I don't know what's wrong, but I love you and I want to be in a relationship with you, whether that's like a romantic partner or a friend or something else, you know, like that's kind of irrelevant to the detail. But like, dude, I love that. That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. That kind of stuff comes like, I don't mean to cut you off, but that kind of thing, like it comes from such like you have to know that pain in order to write a lyric like that. You know what I mean? Yeah. Yeah. So I feel.
No, this whole thing is the next part. Thank you for understanding that. That means a lot. I love hearing that. This next part, if you could see my face, then you'd know what I feel. Things I try to hide, but then cannot conceal. I'm one of those people. I am the worst liar. Like it's so bad. Like when we were talking about earlier, you know, like connecting with people and be like, hey, I like that or whatever. I'm one of those people. Like if you got a cool shirt, you know, like you know what? Everybody knows what it's like to get a new haircut, like fresh cut, new shirt, whatever it is, you know. And you show up and you're like, nobody said anything. Like does it not? Do I look bad or you know like is this not as cool as I think it is? You know. And I'm one of those people that absolutely like. If I think you got a cool haircut or great shirt or whatever it is, I'll be like, oh, nice shirt. I like that, you know, or whatever. But I was telling somebody else the other day, it's like my biggest, my best/worst character trait/flaw, because sometimes it comes across as, oh, great, I like your haircut, you know, or sometimes it comes across as, oh, I see you've changed your hair. You know what I mean? Like
I've seen him do this in public.
Yeah, no,
Oh.
Sean has seen me do it where like I cannot hold it in. You know, like if I'm, you know, if we're out at shows or whatever, somebody does a great job, and you know, it's not just good set, bro. For me, you know, it's like, hey, I really love this song, and that part in the middle where you're like, you know, that whole thing, and other times, you know, it's. So I have to watch myself, you know, because it's so authentic that sometimes it's, you
Too
know,
much.
it needs to be filtered.
You mean
Easily
like
filtered.
you'll give
Yeah.
them the honest truth when they may not want it sometimes, or like?
Yeah, sometimes. But
Well,
I mean, it's good and bad. But that whole, if you could see my face, then you'd know what I feel, because they hadn't
Yeah.
been speaking to me, or
Yeah.
wouldn't even look me in the eye when we were in the same room.
Mm.
And so here we are, a little truth with a little delicacy. That's what
Yeah.
mine that I really look up to had said. Yeah, so.
I
But
feel
no,
like
if they
Aaron
were-
I was just gonna say, I feel
No,
like
I was
Aaron
just saying
wears
they-
his emotions on his face. So it's like when we're out in public, if we're anywhere, like you can tell if like somebody he doesn't like comes in, or like he's just like, it's like
You don't
like
got that
immediately.
just mastery control of your
it like
emotions kind
it
of
will
thing.
drain from my face real quick. It's that whole like,
Emotion.
like
you know,
boom.
yeah. No, but
You know, I put something that kind of, sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead. Yeah.
I was going to say something kind of interesting that I learned recently, just from another podcast, was like your eyes are literally an actual extension of your brain. So they're like basically the same organ, you know, like obviously different functions, and everything, but there's that interconnectedness to it. And so that's why, like in certain medical exams, they, when they're checking your brain, they'll first check your eyes, because this is an external representation of what's happening here. And I think the same is true for like the way we express emotion and that kind of thing. Like this portion of us is just so like expressive, you know, it shares so much, because it is like, that's where our focus goes when we're having a conversation with someone. And so like unconsciously, we just put so much of our emotional expression here. And I can see how, like, you know, growing up, not having as much of like social interaction where you do, because typically behaviors are like formed by
Reinforcement.
societal pressure, expectation,
Yeah, like your
reinforcement, that kind of thing.
peers, you're like what you're kind of around a lot. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. And if you get like if someone in your group calls out your emotions a lot and you don't like that, you might change that. And I think that's why you see like a lot more people in general who typically have like a lot more of like a reserved expression if they're more aware of that type of thing. But I think dude, honestly, one of the things that I've really enjoyed just in our conversations with you is like, I feel like the best way to put it is it's not like I feel like innocence is the closest word to it, where you're more of like a social purity, you know what I mean? In like the way that I hear you approaching the world around you. For example, like also like you talking about just like the intimacy of the level of friendship and relationship that you had with the person that this song is partly about. Like that's something that I don't hear very often from my other male counterparts, where that are more comfortable with being in that intimate side, but I totally relate to it. And I think that's just really beautiful, man. Like the fact that you wear your emotions on your face, I feel like it's just like another, like rather than a red flag, I feel like that's just a hallmark of the fact that you came from a different place than the rest of us. I think that's really beautiful.
That's true. I did. And I feel it all the time, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's beautiful, man. I think
Thank
it's really
you.
cool.
Well, it's helpful
Thank
too,
you.
because you always know where you stand with Aaron, you know?
Yeah,
No.
that's for the rest of us.
That's totally true. And well, because with this next part too, like it also, that if you could see my face and you know what I feel, for me being older, like significantly older than a lot of my friends too, you know, we'll have this conversation where like I didn't grow up in, you know, the Instagram texting Zoom meeting world, you know, like
Yeah.
I grew up in like if you could see my face and you know what I feel, because so many times, oh my God, if you're doing like a text conversation or a messenger, whatever it is, it's like there's no voice tone. There's no like, you know what I mean? Like interpersonal communication. And so many times, whether it be with, you know, girls or friends or even family, you know what I mean? That's, you know me my whole life. They're like, well, what did you mean by that? You know, or, oh, I thought you meant this. I'm like, no, you can say something and have it have multiple meanings over text that it doesn't, you know, come across, you know. And yeah, I didn't grow up during that time. I found the Star Wars pictures. Can I show you? Okay. Okay. So I don't know if you can even see this. I'm gonna try and get up to the camera. My mom found this. I'm gonna post it. We were in the early 1980s. This is to illustrate how old I am.
Oh yeah.
In the early 1980s, my mom and family, we went to the dunes in between Yuma, Arizona and San Diego. And she pulls me over and grabs my hand like, hey, let's go watch them build the spaceship. And we didn't know what it was. And it turns out that they were building Jabba the Hutt's spaceship from Star Wars. I'm going to try and get it up so you can kind of see it.
Dude.
Can you see that?
Oh, yeah.
They were literally building the Empire or the Return of the Jedi sets.
That is so cool.
And we were like
so
right
that
there.
was when Star Wars was popular.
And I remember
too.
this. My mom was like, little Aaron. I remember her grabbing my hand and say, hey, let's go watch him build the spaceship. And she found this like for me the other day. So I took pictures of it. I'll put it up on Instagram. But
Wow.
That's so cool.
a lot of time lately, because I'm approaching a very big birthday in a couple of weeks. And it's kind of one of those things where like I had felt kind of bad about it for a long time because I felt like I got off to such a late start in life because of, being blind or, a lot of other things that factored in. Now when I meet my friends and they're like, 25, or they're like 18 or they're, whatever, like they don't understand. Like they'll be like, what do you mean you didn't check out my new song? Just get in your car, pull out your aux cord, plug it in, bring up your streaming whatever. And I'm just like, I don't understand like 17 of the words that you just said,
Like, what's a cassette tape?
We had to get, gosh, no, I owned Fleetwood Mac's Rumor on record without irony back in the day.
No, I have a Rumors vinyl.
Do you?
Yeah.
I did too from a long
The
time ago.
OG copy, man. I got it from a yard sale, believe it or not.
Nice.
Dude, that's awesome.
But that's one of those things where like it just puts me in. I feel like I do lately. I've made peace with it. Being older than my friends, I feel like it's okay, because I didn't want to tell people for a long time. I'm like, dang, then they won't want to be friends with me because they know I'm like older than them, But it turns out that's not the case. It's totally cool, and I totally trust them, and it's made me feel confident within myself to just be like, I have had a lot of lifetimes in my lifetime, and I've done a lot of things, like the Star Wars thing, that are pretty unique, that I haven't have experienced that not everybody has. So I'm trying to see that as a good thing lately,
Yeah, it can be hard because of that isolating aspect of it. But I feel like we might have touched on this last time too. I feel like coming from a place like that, you offer a unique perspective on reality and society as a whole. If they're smart enough to embrace you, they'll benefit from it. Like, I mean, I already feel like I've benefited from the conversations that we've had. Just knowing your story and where you've come from and what you've done with your life, it's really beautiful.
Thank you. I appreciate that. But that's what that, if you could see my face, then you know what I feel. Things I try to hide but cannot conceal. I mean, we were having these fights over Messenger and text message. And it's like, if we could just actually get together and hammer this out like human beings, then we could compare notes and be like, oh, well, so-and-so said, you said this. Well, they told me that, you know what I mean? It's like, Yeah. Where are we at right now?
Straight.
Let's see. You can see my face. We did that one.
Can't wait. Saved my life and everything I wish.
You want to jump down
changed.
to so one of the lyrics that stuck out to me was definitely, do you know that I was thrown into the water? I thought that I might drown. I was tied up to an anchor and my hands were bound. That's not like an uncommon idea in music and everything, but also as a fellow writer, I know that when you write a lyric like that, you kind of have like your own personal perspective on what the anchor is, what the like hands being bound means, what drowning means even, so like what's the specifics of what you're talking about there? Like what's bound your hands? Why are you in the water? That kind of thing.
It was about, and it's like you said, it's not an uncommon idea. It's just the way you say it sometimes, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it's like, I didn't choose to go into the water,
Oh yeah, that's a good point.
Chosen to do that, then that would be fine. And I happen to love the water, you know what I mean? But being thrown into the water is something totally different than deciding to go in yourself,
Yeah.
That's why I thought that I might drown, you know what I mean? Because like if you can choose to do something, if you could kind of like whatever it is, if you can collect yourself and kind of get there and do that, that's a lot more fun than having to be forced to do something.
Definitely.
That I was thrown into the water, I thought that I might drown. I was tied up to an anchor, you know, which is like an anchor is going to bring you down in that case. You know, I mean, I like to think of anchors as something that can ground you. But in this case, what was grounding me was this person. But because I'd been thrown into the water, they were bringing me down. Because things with this person that had kept me happy to just, you know, feel validated a little bit musically as a person, at work. Because like I said, we worked together. This person even helped me get like a promotion into the department they were in, you know?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times too, part of it was there can be too much quality time that can, you know, familiarity breeds contempt sometimes, you know, like
It can, yeah, for sure.
hey, my grandparents were married for like 50 years, but she still like went to Vegas on the weekends with the girls and he still played golf. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there's still time apart is important, you know, but we were, because like if someone's your homie, you know, then you're like hanging out, you know, at their place or they're at your place or you're going to go see movies or when we could all do that, you know, but you know, or and that time we did, you know, but if someone is also your friend, you know, that's in your band, well, you're playing music together. So you're doing rehearsals or you're writing together or you're playing together. You know what I mean? Shows. And then if they work with you, you know, if they're at work, if they're at, you know, and that's why it was so hard for me to get over this. It took a very, very long time before I felt like myself again. It took a very long time in me meeting somebody else in the last couple of years that I really connect with, because there's a lot of really great friends that I have that I really, really love, but there's not a lot of people that I feel understand me, you know what I mean? Because you can love somebody but not understand.
Yeah, it's a big difference.
But they help heal that a lot. No, but so people would say, they're like, why are you so broken up about this? Just throw yourself into your, you know, like throw yourself into your work, you know, go to work and just, I'm like, no, they work with me. And they'd be like, well, okay, you need to channel this into your music, you know? I'm like, you know, go, you know, gather your crew and whatever. I'm like, no, he's in my band, you know? Or they're like, well, you need to find a good friend that you trust to talk about this with. And I'm like, the person I have those deep conversations with is the person who's not speaking to me right now. Yeah. So it was just too much, you know? It's just a lot, you know? Now I think that hopefully we're both enough removed from that we'd be able to, you know, treat that like adults and have that be in the past, but I don't know. I hope so someday.
Yeah. I mean, all of that goes back to what you were talking about. So on the subject of the lyrics and that kind of thing, all that goes back to I really liked what you said about being thrown and the specifics of that and having your hands bound and the idea of like, this is a situation that you found yourself in that wasn't one that you chose. And that can definitely contribute to a lot of those emotions that you were just describing, especially the like, me and my wife will sometimes just like, as we're driving, when I'm driving around, I'll be like, man, like everywhere I look, I see something that reminds me of my wife, you know, like, and so we just kind of, we talk about like how, like, you know, if one of us dies or if for one reason or another, there ends up like some kind of separation between the two of us, how much of our lives we would have to rework to undo all this knitting together that we've done. And like, you know, part of the pain of dealing with a change like that, especially on like a large scale when someone is intimately involved in your life, is that you're just constantly reminded of that pain. And that just makes the healing process difficult. You know, like, I mean, part of the healing process is definitely confronting the issue and looking at it and sitting with it and dealing with it and properly grieving the process, you know, but also like another part of it is moving on. And when every corner of your life reminds you of that broken relationship, it just makes it hard to move on. You're just constantly reminded of the pain, you know? It can be rough.
No, it's totally true. And I went to that I would come home literally every day because we worked together. You know what I mean? And my cubicle was here and their cubicle was here. It was like, there was no getting away from it. And people would kind of like come and they would want to force us to talk to each other for like work related stuff. And they'd be like, oh, it's so hard, you know, because you can't say to somebody, I never want to see you again, and then have to see them for 8 hours again.
Yeah.
Every day for months. I used to come home like and just cry.
Dude, I bet.
Because it was so hard to go through that every single day. Yeah. And that was, because there's no getting away from people, you know. I had actually talked to Sean, you know, I love Fleetwood Mac. Anyone who knows me for 10 minutes knows that. I had actually reached out to a counselor about that whole thing, you know, when I was really in the thick of it, you know, and I was telling him, you know, when, you know, he asked me about myself. I told him I like write songs and sing, you know, and he was like, okay, you know, tell me about what's going on. I told him about working and all that, you know, those type of conditions. He said, you know, when I was driving into work today, I heard a Fleetwood Mac song on the radio, and he's like, you ever heard of the band Fleetwood Mac? I'm like, the things I could tell you about Fleetwood Mac. I'm like, you may have the doctorate, but I tell you what, like, you're not going to tell me anything I don't know.
Let me take you to
when
school,
he proceeds
sir.
to tell me about how they were all like involved with each other, but they were locked in a studio, you know, and they still had to do the music and tour together, and you know, and I'm like, yeah, okay, I get it.
Like, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
That's funny.
And so then, I mean, obviously, then it only comes naturally next that the motivation was that maybe that person wouldn't hate you, right? Is the next line. So
That's pretty much it, you know, that if I could fight on through, you know, that maybe I could get through to you. Because that's that whole part where tied to an anchor, thrown into the water, my hands were bound. They're three different things, and they are those three different things that you just couldn't get away from, you know.
Yeah,
that
Trinity.
yeah, the only thing the only thing I'm trying to like say it without singing it.
gonna judge?
Motivate me was that you wouldn't hate me. Yeah, and that's what it was, because you just think, gosh, does this person hate me? You know what I mean? Like, they just, you know, like literally
yeah.
hung out at my house for like 4 hours the other day. You know what I mean? You just walked my dog like Tuesday, and on Friday you hate me. Like, what happened? You know?
Yeah.
And that happens sometimes. It's awful. Now, when I do this live, this is one of the songs I love to do live, because it always goes over well live. You know, and I sent you one of the live versions earlier.
Yeah, it's pretty solid.
Here.
It's haunting,
But
actually.
it's every time you do it, it helps me get through that. You know, but when I sing that line and sing, the only thing to motivate me was maybe you wouldn't leave me.
Yeah.
You know, because this song it's not necessarily like when I do this live, it's not really about that person anymore.
Yeah.
You know,
it's changed for you.
It has changed for me, because especially when I do these shows locally here, because it's like everyone will come to see me, and I love that so much. Like, oh my gosh, it just warms my heart to be able to look out and see people that I really look up to musically, you know, that I, you know, go and see them, and I'm just in awe of their talent and the fact that we get to like hang out and, you know, call each other peers, and, you know, but like, so when I'm singing this, and I remember the first time I did this live, I was sitting there and I was really nervous to do this song because I wanted to get it out, but I was nervous to do it. And when I'm sitting there and I'm like, you know, you saved my life, you know, and I'm looking around, I'm like, my shadows fade. You help my shadows fade. Looking at different people in the audience that I'm like, wow, maybe this was originally about this one person, but when they left my life, I thought, you know what? They can't be the only person in the whole world now, and I know that now. So I really aggressively, you know, pursued trying to find other people, and that's why I have Sean to thank for that, really. I mean, because Sean started the Arizona Musicians Exchange. He runs that page on Facebook, and that was, what do we do now again? Because we turned to the internet, you know, because it has all the answers. I'm like, there's got to be other people, you know, and I found that. The first thing I saw was it was a band called I Remember Burning, and that was Rio Wiley. Look his music up. His rock band that he did before Rio Wiley was in I Remember Burning, and these guys were all like holding, it was him, and the rest of the guys in the band, and they were holding signs, and they're like, suicide is not the answer, like, you're not alone.
Remember that video?
You know, all these signs, and I was like, wow, these must be good dudes, you know. I'm like, okay. So I was like, I kind of followed them around for like a little while. And from that, you know, I met all kinds of other people. And like, when I sing this now, I don't think of, you know, the person who made me feel this way. I do think of people, like I said, like my mom and my sister, you know, people who have supported me. Like, you got to change that shift. You know, I think of Joseph, who, you know, found me on the floor and was like, listen, you know, Mr. Diabetic, you're not doing this to us. Not over this, you know.
Yeah.
People like you, Sean, you know. And hopefully someday people like Eric, you seem cool. I want to meet your wife and uncle too.
Dude,
Yeah.
she's pretty cool too.
She is very
No,
cool.
but like Rio or any of them, I really do. I think,
Yeah.
you know, that's who saved my life, and that's who this is about now when I sing it.
Dude, that's really cool. I love that
beautiful.
that's been able to, yeah, it's been able to change and mature for you. I've definitely noticed something similar in myself as well with, like, I don't know if we touched on this last time or not, but talking about, like, there were certain songs that I've written where when I originally wrote them, I was like in tears, like putting these lyrics together and stuff, and like feeling like maybe I've exposed too much of myself, maybe it's too intimate, you know, that kind of thing. And as like time's gone on and as I've performed some of those songs and that kind of thing, they've definitely taken on different meanings for me. And like I have one track called like Water, and
The intro track to this show.
that actually, yeah.
Oh, it is? Okay.
Yeah. So it's about a lot of things, but one of the big things is it's about my grandma passing from Alzheimer's, and just kind of like the slow struggle that was, and kind of like the process of saying goodbye to her before she really disappeared entirely. Because she went through that for about 2 years before she finally passed, but maybe more, because it's kind of one of those things you don't really see it until it's very obvious, you know. But I had someone reach out to me recently who was talking about how that song helped them not commit suicide, and which wasn't why I wrote that song, you know, but also like it's just cool to see music take a life of its own and how it can evolve like that, not just for yourself, but for the people listening to you. Because I mean, you have all your own interpretations and meanings behind the lyrics of this song as well. When I'm listening to it, I hear different things, you know, like I hear my own desire as a young person growing up, and even now as an adult, where there are times where I really do just beg that question of like, I just want to be involved in your life. Like, I don't know why this needs to be more complicated than it is. I just love you, you know?
Yeah, no, exactly. No.
See, and
No,
the
there's-
reason I picked, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, absolutely. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, and the reason I picked the song was too, is because it like Water, and it talks about clarity and everything becoming clear. And if you listen to the way it's cut to the intro, it always ends on that snap that you always disappear like that, right?
Yep.
And then it goes into the show, and that's why I picked it, is because it flows that well.
Nice.
All right, and we're back. Hello, Aaron.
We got the whole crew.
We're here.
Hello.
Let's close this bad boy up. So the last
Okay.
kind of question we like to drag our participants through and kind of put them on the spot with is, what is your favorite lyric? It can be a favorite lyric of all time, something that's currently bouncing around in your head, or just something that means a lot to you.
What's funny is all my favorite lyrics have to do about light and dark, and I don't think I really realized that. You know what I mean? Until I start thinking about that, you know? Sam Etling from Sore Eyes showed me a really cool movie, Green Room.
Oh yeah.
And there's a line in what's his, I think it's Dirty God song.
Yeah.
It starts out where funny you were scarier in the
so
dark.
funny. Yeah.
Yeah.
Scary.
You know, yeah.
Yeah.
And
Dude,
it's
that's
totally
cool. I
true.
really
Like
like
some
that
things,
way.
you know, like some of your greatest fears, you know, when things come to light, they aren't actually that, you know.
Yeah.
And I think I just went and saw the Stevie Nicks movie.
How was that?
It was great. For me, it was great too, you know what I mean? Because she tells like stories and things. We've all got to get creative during this like pandemic time. So she did like a movie at the drive-in, but it was a filmed concert, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so she did two of my favorite songs of hers, and one of them was Gypsy. And in Gypsy it says lightning strikes maybe once, maybe twice, and it lights up the night. And that was always, you know, especially meaningful to me because I couldn't see, you know?
Yeah.
And I always used to really, really love that lyric. And then the other one is from a song called Belladonna, and then she did that live too. And so I got a little teary in the theater during that too. I swear I'm not a crier, but there are things that move me to tears, you know?
Yeah, dude, I'm a crybaby for sure.
Ever since I hit 25.
You know, some things are just really, really overwhelming, you know? It's like you just can't even, you know, but that really gets to me because I've been listening to her for my whole life. You know, it's like if somebody could tell me I'd be going to, well, her song Dreams, Fleetwood Mac just, you know, got like another #1 song because of the dog face guy, the drinking the cranberry juice.
Yeah.
You know, it's going like, I was telling
After
Austin,
40 years.
Yeah, I was telling Austin Cooper, formerly of No Lungs, hopefully of No Lungs again, or he's doing a couple other projects, but that because when Edge of 17 started, he's like, oh, it's from Jack Black from School of Rock, you know? I'm like, yeah, a lot of people know this song from that, but my whole life, no matter what it was, like Stevie Nicks was always around, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Some people
Same.
like these obnoxious people I grew up with, you know what I mean? That were all like, well, you don't play basketball and, you know, your parents aren't rich. Well, you're just pretty worthless then, aren't you? You know, I'd be like, okay. And they're like, why do you listen to like Stevie Nicks? And like, why are you listening to Fleetwood Mac? You need to listen to
Because she's a badass.
And they'd be like, you need to listen to R. Kelly. R. Kelly's what's cool right now. You know, I'd be like, I don't know, you know, something about R. Kelly gives me the willies. Like, you know, like,
Something about R. Kelly
I'm
gives
like-
a lot of people the willies.
exactly though. Like the last 20 years have been pretty validating for me because like, you know, Stevie Nicks, you know, was just inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and R. Kelly is,
Twice.
you know, well, twice, yeah. And R. Kelly is, you know, well, you know, what happened to R. Kelly, but
Yeah.
no, like things like that. Like, so the song Belladonna, she says, come in out of the darkness, and kind of like repeats that. So
Yeah.
it was good to hear that song live. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yep.
Beautiful. Yeah, I mean, Stevie Nicks, the only woman in history to ever be inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame twice.
Mm-hmm. Can I
There's a
like
lot-
have a super geek out moment right now? Since we're
Do
talking
it.
about this, like the light and dark, and well, that means everything to me. You know, from being blind, that's a big part of it. But can I show you my? Since we're telling this story, this is my light of Arendelle,
Oh shit!
right? And I had it was another one of those things because I was thinking of that same stupid kid that was telling me to stop listening to Stevie Nicks and listen to R. Kelly. He's like, well, what are you into? You know, I'm like, well, I love a book called The Hobbit, you know, and he was like, The Hobbit, no one even knows what that is. You know what I mean? Like, you just don't know what's cool. And I'd be like, okay, Mr. R. Kelly, and you know, whatever. And I would tell myself, like, someday the world will know. And it's like now, like those Lord of the Rings movies, they're like, you know, they're some of the biggest grossing movies of all time, you know,
Yeah.
is the Hobbit. But no, I used to, when I was really, really dark and going through that dark place, when all that happened with the song, I used to watch the scene in The Hobbit where where Galadriel says before she gives this to Frodo, let it be a light in the darkness when all the other lights go out, you know? And like, I would look at it, you know, and just hold it and be like, wow, that was like my little symbol. And sometimes when I would just feel so hopeless, you know, I would hold that. And I would watch that scene over and over again where she goes up against the Eye. I don't know if you've seen the third Hobbit where it's like her versus the Eye for like the first time. And she like holds him off with the light, you know?
And then you
Yeah,
beat
I got to
spiders
meet
to
Elijah
death.
Wood one time at one of the Comic-Con. I told him that story.
That's awesome.
So no, that was really cool. But yeah, no, but that's that same person. They were like, why are you listening to Stevie Nicks? She's not going to be around in another like couple years. Well, her and Harry Styles just went on the Gucci cruise together. So guess what? She's fine. You know?
R. Kelly is pleading for people to have clemency on him. Is that clemency?
Yikes.
That's the word I'm looking at, right?
So we won't end it on R. Kelly.
So you just had a new song released, right? Echoes?
I did. I like Echoes quickly. I know because we're wrapping up. But Echoes, I went back because I knew I was going to do this for you here. And I don't know, you know, like the other stuff that's been out recently is pretty polished and pretty produced, you know, and this song kind of sounds unfinished a little bit, but I kind of like that because it is kind of unfinished. You know what I mean?
I like it a lot.
And that's how it is.
It's a new, it feels like it's new territory for you musically. But it's very strong foot forward, and I really like what you're doing.
Thank you. Yeah, Echoes is kind of the sequel to Shed Light on Shadow.
Oh,
Is
right.
that when I started feeling down again, I was like, there's echoes calling me out. And that was the echoes of how I used to feel, you know, like, well, what's the point of any of this, you know? And I got a message from a really good friend now. And I was like, oh, right, you exist. I'm so glad, you know? Yeah, you know,
Yeah.
but that's why I said there's messages in the winds now that hold on and live and let go. There's more to come. There's more than you know. There's more to come than you know. And I felt like I was singing that to myself, like, don't
It's
let
coming.
go. There's coming. You know what I mean? This person right here that's
Yeah.
messaging you right now is, you. And could I imagine my life without them? No. And I wanted to tell myself back then, you know, hey, hold on, like there's echoes, but yeah, but you'll be somewhere eventually that you'll be really happy about. I'm really happy right now. So
On that
Dude.
note, thank you so much. We're glad to have had you on. Look forward to having you on for the artist spotlight. We'll have to figure out when we're going to do that this week.
Yeah, man. This was truly wonderful. Thank you for this conversation.
Eric, I can't wait till we hang out.
I know it's gonna be good when we can like actually connect in
Be
person.
in person someday.
We have to have
Right.
Aaron perform at a Sorrow Circle show.
That would be a ton of fun. We could totally work something like that out.
Very cool.
Oh,
All
man.
right. Well, thank you guys. Have a great day. Be safe.